Hey everyone, Sunyveil here. Just a quick note, there was actually a balanced patch released immediately after we finished recording this episode, so unfortunately we didn't get to address it. We'll definitely get to it next time, but until then, sit back, relax, and enjoy FECast episode 35, the recap of ECQ Dead or Alive. Hello everyone and welcome to FECast episode 35, the recap of ECQ Dead or Alive. I am your host, Sunyveil, and along with me is my co-host and someone who did quite well in this tournament, Stormblessed. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. I'm very pleased after the tournament showing, although obviously I wish I could have done a little bit better, but that's how card games work, right?
Yeah, I mean, card games are so enjoyable. They are so replayable just because they're so, unpredictable. And I think that's, whether or not people like to admit it, that is something that keeps us coming back to it. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the ECQ. We're just going to be giving a full recap of it. But before that, we have a couple things. Why don't you tell us about this new promo?
So for the month of July, every week starting on Monday, Direwolf is putting out a new promo that you can get one copy a day. Last week was Kozlo, Var's Urshin friend, and today, on Monday, Direwolf has released Friends in Low Place 2 red Justice fast spell with give a unit +4/+4 this turn, plunder, which already would be a fairly decent effect, but there's more to it than that. If you manage to also have 6 fire influence when you cast, you get to play 4/1/1 Rust, which it doesn't mention on the card, but the Rustlings are both Grenadins and do have decay. And if you have 6 Justice, you get to play a unit with cost 4 or less from the top 4 cards of your deck and give it age, bottom the rest. And if you have both 6 fire and 6 Justice, you get to give a unit +4/+4, plunder, play 4/1/1 Rustlings with decay, and play the unit to give it age, which is a lot. Obviously, getting 6 of both is hard, but amusingly, this was released right after the ECQ, where there was a standout new deck that relied upon getting heavy Justice influence and in a Rakano shell, so...
Yeah, we really saw the power of the new Ironthorn. I don't know his full title, but it's a 2-cost, 3/2 that requires triple Justice and single fire, Ironthorn Lawman, and when you have Ironthorn in play, all of your influence is doubled, or at least like whenever you gain influence, it's doubled. So getting up to 6 Justice is no big issue, and getting up to 6 Fire probably is not too difficult as well if that's what you're trying to do. And you get just a ton of stuff for just the cost of 2. This strikes me as a card that could be nerfed. Like it's something either the ease of getting influence or this card I think are not going to last very long.
If it does get nerfed, it will be because getting to either half of the effect is too good, because to get to both halves you pretty much have to be late game or high rolling, so I don't think that for getting both sides of the card that busted, one side of the card is busted, then it will be busted by itself.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Anyway, we'll talk more about that Rakano deck in a bit, but first I just want to plug the Piloting Club and the Friends of Eternal Discord. Of course, if you've listened to this show, you know that the FED Discord is the best place to get better at Eternal. And I have recently been reviewing the videos of past ECQs and talking about the gameplay and just doing a deep dive into how the players played and what other options they might have had, and just doing a deep analysis, seeing what they can do to improve their gameplay or any small mistakes they may have made. So be sure to check that out. Right now, I just have the first semifinal match. I'm definitely going to get other semifinal match and the finals later today. That's going to be on YouTube, and you can check out information about the Piloting Club in the Discord. And one other thing before we get to our ECQ recap, the last episode of FECast was actually the most listened to date, and I'm really proud of that. So thanks everyone out there for listening. We're definitely glad to have you.
Your views fuel us. Feed us with your likes and views and comments.
Oh my goodness.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Oh my goodness.
Ring that bell.
The ring that bell is like my least favorite thing. That's like so obnoxious.
I don't like it either.
Yeah, I hate notifications more than anything.
100%.
Every time I go to a Discord server, I just like shut off all notifications. Well, actually, I give them a chance. And if they're just like, if I go to a streamer's Discord and it's just like an at everyone, hey, I'm going live for whatever, a normal stream, no special, that Discord automatically muted and put in. That's a pet peeve. Anyway, so just patting ourselves on the back and patting everyone out there for listening. Patting their backs through the internet. Anyway, enough nonsense. Let's get on to the topic of today, which is the ECQ Dead or Alive, or as we talked about in the last episode, ECQ Xenan. We talked about how Xenan was a dominant force and really put constraints on the format. It really warped the format around it. And you also mentioned that one of the other ways to combat it was to use a ruffian deck, right?
Yes.
And we saw a lot of that this week.
Yeah, so the other well, I mean, the narrative going into the ECQ was obvious Xenan was going to dominate. But then there was a surprising new narrative led by my team, the Barbarian Camp, the team that I'm a part of, how we built a Rakano influence deck, and it took us to 9 out of 11 top 60. Like, out of our 11 current active members, 9 of them got in the top 64 at the deck. And then 6 others playing either independently constructed, or I think more of them not used a reverse engineering method to make a copy of the deck that also managed to get in the top 4. So Rakano was the sort of breakout story narrative of the day. For those of you wondering where Rakano came from, so none of us really on TBC wanted to play because we don't really like even decks a lot, and not all of us are interested in like the level 1 deck a lot of the time, and the mirror just looked like a miserable mess to play. So a lot of us are trying other things. You know, I've tried so many decks, and the one that I was most interested in was a Wump and Friends deck, Elysian Wump deck, because Wump is exceptionally powerful, but that one didn't really work out as well. And one day, Roush 1, Nick, comes in Discord and says, posted a Rakano list, and then kind of walks away. And I take this Rakano list, and I try it out, and I make some small tweaks. I remove Wasteland Broker, and I put Sadidi main deck, and I put Mantle of Justice in the market, and the deck started crushing it. And, you know, it's funny because the deck, it was actually difficult to build, apparently. So I wasn't there, but Nick apparently built a first version of the deck on stream that was, like, complete garbage. And then so he tuned it, posted this list, and just assumed that it was also garbage and rubbish. I remember even commenting at one point, like, man, this list is rubbish. And I was like, I just went like 18-2 on ladder. I think the list is great. You know, I think in some part, you know, the fact that he and also like people who watched like GT saw that first list being such garbage made them not realize that the updates made the list a lot better and made it actually a really, really powerful list. So eventually it gets to the point where we're all wondering what to play for the ECQ. And then I'm just like pushing Rakano hard. I'm like, this deck is great. I think I should just take Rakano. Man, Rakano is doing really well. And eventually I get them all on board. And, you know, the deck obviously performed really well. So yeah, that's sort of where Rakano came from.
So what were the big draws to playing Rakano? Obviously there's Ruffian, but you can play Ruffian in any shell.
Yes.
What were the cards that made you really want to play Rakano specific?
So the biggest 2 cards that would make you want to play Rakano. Okay, well there's sort of 2.5 cards. First, Sylex. Silexes are great. If you're not playing Silexes, you are playing a bad deck. That's just the way it works right now. So like Huru Ruffian just was straight out for me, because, you know, I didn't want to play a deck with Vows and not Silex, and also I didn't want to play too many double primal cards, especially at 2 cost, like Maveloth Huntress. Although Maveloth Huntress does have a really cute interaction with Ruffian, where you Ruffian a unit, attack with it, then you can Maveloth Huntress to save the temporary stats. But the really big draw, actually, I guess there's actually a lot of draws to Rakano, but Bullet Shaper has to be the biggest one. Bullet Shaper is sort of the key linchpin of the deck. If you can get like a Bullet Shaper on 2, you can go off really quickly, because it powers up your Ruffians, it ensures your Silverblade intrusions can get cast earlier, it combines really well with Lawman to give you 2 Justice Influence at once, and you can even use it to ramp out an early Sadidi to put a giant flying pressure on the board, as well as give your opponent a curse that will draw you cards in the right matchup. So Bullet Shaper has to be the big draw, but really it's the interaction of all of the powerful Rakano cards in the deck, because as I said before, you're playing the Ruffian shell with whatever coat of paint you want on it. In this case, the coat of paint was Ironthorn Lawman, Bullet Shaper, and Aijin. And, Aijin is really good. On turn 3, it's just a 3/3 for 3 that's not the greatest thing ever. But it will ramp you Justice when you attack, which is obviously useful in the deck. But once you can get to 6 Justice, which, again, isn't difficult with the powers of Bullet Shaper and Lawman, you just make +4/+4 weapons every turn. Put down, an Emblem Flyer as a 2/1. Now it's a 6/5 Flyer, Sadidi becomes a 10/10. It's just a really powerful set of cards that all has synergy together, right? They're all individually powerful, but also all synergize really well. And that's what I think you want in a deck. So I think you want the synergy inherent in a deck that also doesn't broken up by like one turn to seed, because everything's synergized with everything. So even if you lose one part, the rest of it still works out.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Everything's pushing the whole influence faction in the deck. Or not faction, but like aspect of the deck. Yeah, there are a lot of things that enable the influence, and there's a lot of things that get paid off on the influence. It's not just one card for each one, and that's what makes it so consistent and so powerful. The Ejin was... I did not even think about Ejin until I saw it played against me, as far as being like a powerful card. I kind of, had... Ironthorn Lawman in the back of my head, but like I didn't know what to put it with, really. So yeah, this deck, the reports for the yearly rounds of the ECQ, where people are playing their runs and telling us about what they faced and how they did. I started seeing this Rakano Surge deck, and I hadn't played against any Rakano Surge. I guess you guys are calling it Rakano Influence, and that's a better way of putting it. But I hadn't seen any of this deck on ladder. So I'm just testing out my Xenan deck, and I actually posted a version of the list on Thursday and then again on Friday morning, being like, hey, this is a pretty good deck. If you don't know what to play, you can't really go too wrong with this. For the ECQ. Anyway, so I play against an old teammate of mine, Jaffa. I guess it's actually Hoffa, but like it's been Jaffa in my mind for so long, and
I think Jaffa confirmed it was actually Jaffa in Twitch chat.
Oh, okay. They kept on calling him Hoffa. I was like, who's this Hoffa person? And I got it. Anyway, okay, so Jaffa. I just played against Jaffa in a normal ladder match, and Jaffa's just an incredibly friendly person, one of the most friendly people in the Eternal community, and is the leader of Eternal Titans, the team that I was on prior to Friends of Eternal, and just got absolutely steamrolled by this Rakano deck. And I talked to him afterward, and he said he was reverse engineering the TBC deck, because you guys kept it close to yourselves, and he played against them, or maybe one of his teammates did, and he was trying to figure out how to play it. So he shared with me his deck list. And then I tried to tinker with it and reverse engineer this deck that people were talking about, even though I hadn't actually played against any TBC members. I just played against Jaffa. So I ended up playing this Rakano deck for the ECQ as well, although it ended up being a pretty different version. And one of the cards that I included that wasn't in your list, and which I think was a pretty big deal, is Telut. Telut doesn't look like a ton. This is the quintuple Justice rare for out of the cycle from Argent Depths. It's a 5/5. It has a surge. Enemy units get -1/-1, and your relic weapon gets +1/+1. Pretty unassuming, I'd say, and definitely not good against control decks. But oh boy, against the Xenan deck, it was incredible. I think that the big line of play against a lot of unit-based decks is to have an Ironthorn Lawman in play Telut, and then play a dual influence power, and then just shrink your opponent's board by 4, and that's usually the game. So I think that was a big part of the deck, at least for my experience.
So I'm still not 100% sure about Telut. He's the one card that like batters around a couple of times, but I wasn't really at all interested in testing him out, because I thought the deck did enough by itself, and I didn't want to clunk it up with another 4-drop. Was my thought there. I can definitely see it being a poor part of the deck, especially now with this new card, Friends in Low Places, because, it can hit, with cost 4 or less from the top of your deck. So hitting Telut with Friends in Low Places and giving it Aegis just sounds incredibly dominating. So I definitely think it's worth considering, or even just playing now, because of a new card that was obviously given to us. So obviously things change with the new card. The one thing that Jaffa wasn't playing, but Sunny was, and the other big difference that Sunny wasn't playing, but Jaffa was, is that Sunny had the one of Embargo Officer as a press gang target against both Reanimator and Market matchups, and Jaffa had Silverblade Intrusion, which Sunny did not have. So those are sort of the two aside from Tell It, those are the two big differences between the other versions of Rakano Influence and the TBC one. Just go over them. Embargo Officer one of was absurd. It won me a lot of games because if you're playing against Xenan Reanimator, or if you're like, you think that the only out they have is in their market, you can just play Embargo Officer off Press Gang. Or in our version of the deck, we had Reweave Market, which we'll get to in a second. But Reweave for any card in your deck to turn it into a Embargo Officer or into another copy of Trickshot Ruffian meant that we got to have our pseudo Gavel card in the market as well as another, combo finisher piece. So then the other thing that was really good that Sunny did not play was Silverblade Intrusion. He had it in the market, but the best thing with Silverblade Intrusion is on turn 4, if you can play an Aijin with 6 Justice Influence, you play Aijin, have 1 power open. On your opponent's turn, you can end of turn play Intrusion to make a 7/7 flyer and attack with 2 7/7s on turn 5, and that's just backbreaking right there.
Yeah, the Press Gang was a huge part of the deck. I mean, you're obviously mostly using Press Gangs to get more Trickshot Ruffians, but also like being able to tutor up the Embargo Officer, or even just I forget the name of it. It's the 2/1 Plunder for 1.
It is Crown Patroller, having the ability to go for power, right? Basically, Crown Patroller is just a power card, right? That you can pull out of the deck with Crown Watch Press Gang and Crown Patroller. Wow, those are complicated to say together.
Yeah, so this Rakano deck was definitely the talk of the town. Going into the top 64, both you and I made it. I wasn't going to play all the way on Sunday anyway, and I'm already qualified, so I was just in it for the ride. But you made top 64, and another reason to pat ourselves on the back, half of the top 64, 32 players, are in the Friends of Eternal Discord, and that's a new record, and I'm really proud of that fact. I'm really proud of everyone that made it coming from our Discord.
It's a great little community. It has most of the best players, and there are more players coming all the time. Like, just after the ECQ ended, some other people just joined the Discord and introduced themselves that did well at the ECQ. If they show up for future ECQs and also do well, then that's just a higher percentage that's a part of the community.
Before we move on, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our patrons over at patreon.com. These people help us keep FECast going and do all the awesome projects at Friends of Eternal. So a big thanks to Outside Bava, Sigma Tank, Work Done Son, Chamomilk, Chrissier, Yeast Out, and D-Dub for their support of FECast and all things Friends of Eternal. If you would like to be like these awesome people and help support the show, you can donate at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. All right, back to the show. All right, so let's do the top 64 breakdown. You actually made this graph, and all you really need to know is that there is Xenan, there's Ruffian decks, and there is 5 Stone Scar aggro decks. And I guess you said that there were a few 1-ofs, 11 1-ofs. I guess that's
Mono J brought an interesting sort of Ixtun World Pyre control list. I faced in my round 2 in the top 32, I faced the only Feln control deck in the top 64. A at any cost prodigious sorcery Feln deck, and the only one in the deck, and I almost lost them because of the Silverblade Intrusion bug, and that was really tilting at the time.
All right, I remember you talking about that. So out of the top 64, when we got up closer to the top 8, actually, let's go over some of the top 16 happenings. I know that you had to play a mirror against your teammate Batteries. How'd that go?
Batteries had the better draws. It was a very quick 2-0 in Batteries' favor, and he had the Bullet Shapers. I remember in game 2, I had a hand of Silex, Torch, Intrusion, and I was like, okay, well, if I draw a unit, I'll be good. Never drew a unit fast enough. I think he went Bullet Shaper, discard Torch, play second Bullet Shaper, or discard Etchings, maybe. I don't remember which spell he discarded, but getting the tempo out was really big, and I was like, at the time I was like, man, that's an interesting play, but it was a really good play in retrospect, and that's how mirrors go sometimes, right? Had a good run up until then, and then all runs have to end sooner or later unless you win, right?
That is true. So congratulations on that top 16 finish. We also had Chamomilk versus Ilya K. Ilya was using a slightly modified version of the deck list that I had posted right before the tournament. He was even using my market, which I think was not the most advisable necessarily. I definitely wanted to make some changes. I actually just ended up taking out the Wasteland Brokers out of Even Xenan, and Chamomilk was playing an uneven Xenan deck. Chamomilk Milk, of course, a very innovative deck builder, sees, I think, more success than people realize with his decks. You should definitely check them out if you're ever looking for a deck to play for an ECQ and you don't have the time to really hammer it out yourself. Definitely pay attention to Camel Milk stuff, because not only does he do well, but like he gets a lot of other people to do well as well. And he had this solid uneven Xenan list. We're not talking about its only odd costs, but it wasn't playing even-handed golem. And they played a mirror match. I remember they were both in the voice chat, and they were gone for like an hour while they played their match. It sounded pretty grueling. I think Ilya said something about playing 4 Azendels during the course of the third game or something like that.
I mean, Cam Milk had the surprisingly best card of the tournament in his deck. He had Tokos, which shuts down Curtain Call, which was thought to be the best card in the format, but then also incidentally takes out Silverblade Intrusion as well, which is one of Rakano's best cards. So Tokos ended up being a real role player in this.
Yeah, so Ilya advanced to the top 8. And we also had Jaffa, the person who I had gotten the Rakano list from, actually made it to the top 8 as well. So congratulations, Jaffa. Always great to see him doing well. Really one of the most friendly members of the Eternal community, and was responsible for putting together Eternal Titans, which I think had a pretty positive impact. More top 8 players. We had GT100, Gage 902, who used a deck list posted by another content creator. Roshi is here. Has some really innovative deck lists as well, and I guess Gage took it's a Xenan Talir deck. It's really mostly just time, but it's a Talir deck trying to give the time units destiny, and it has Karos in the market, and managed to reach top 8 with that, and that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was actually a game on the stream, and it really showcases it showcased how good Tokos was, but it also really demonstrated actually how difficult the Rakano deck is to play, because I don't blame GT. GT did a great job in the tournament, but there were a couple of pretty big misplays at the end of his run, and because the deck is hard to play, and after a tournament that's like 4 or 5 hours, you get a little tired. And there were moments where GT could have taken it. The biggest one was in the final game when he blocked the Nash the second time and allowed Gage to Dark Return it with Killer as an 8/8 again, and take out his GT's Sadidi that he could have then next turn put like 2 Ruffians on. Getting Gage's only out basically was painful. But really shows that the deck has a lot of lines of play, and the key to playing the Rakano deck is basically to never concede, because you're always like 2 draw steps away from winning. Because
a Flyer and Ruffian.
Yeah, because if you're playing the TBC version of it, you have effectively 16 copies of Ruffian in your deck, because your market has Mantle of Justice and Riwi for Ruffian, and you can draw actual Ruffian, or you can draw Press Gang. And, if you draw, you can also draw like Embargo Officer to shift it out to 3 turns later, play a couple Ruffians on an unblockable unit, or play a Flyer into a Ruffian. So you're like always on the verge of winning with the deck, which can make it really difficult to play, but you also have to like navigate the lines of how do I, punch in for my last 25 points of damage? Which sounds kind of funny to say it that way, but, the deck is sort of a combo deck in that regard, where it's like, okay, I gotta make sure I can punch in for 25. Sometimes, though, you end up with a different style of game, like with Batteries versus Ilya K in top 4.
Hold on, can we get through the top 8 yet?
Oh, sorry. I thought we were done.
I might have to do some editing.
Sure.
We didn't get through the rest of the top 8. In the lowest part of the bracket, we had Kamado versus Gurga PM top 16 match. And these are 2 of the top performers of ECQ Season 1, and Gurga PM managed to take that down. And at the very bottom, we had Iron Man versus Kolokoma, and Kolokoma won that. So this was an absolutely stacked top 8. I mean, there was only one player that I wasn't already very familiar with. We had Nico Aba, who is a seasonal championship winner, playing Even Xenan. We have Batteries, who, of course, is a big member of the community, does a lot of brewing, and is just, a big part of the community, who's on the TBC Rakano list. We had Ilya K, a very vocal member of the community. He's been around since early closed beta, and he was on Even Xenan. Jaffa, who has also been around since closed beta, on Rakano. GT100, another ECQ winner. I don't remember if it was championship. I'm pretty sure it was an ECQ though. On the TBC Rakano deck, Gage on this Xenan deck that uses Talir. Gurga PM, one of the top competitors of Season 1, on Even Xenan, and finally Kolokoma, another ECQ winner on Even Xenan. So this top 8 was absolutely stacked. And granted, there were only 2 faction combinations and 3 different archetypes being represented in it. Xenan in both the Talar version of it and Even, and then the Rakano Surge deck, or Rakano Influence deck. But these matches were absolutely insane. They were a blast to watch. I think they were both swingy and really skill intensive at the same time, which isn't something that I feel like you can say very often, but I just think that the lines of play were really intricate, and the games ended up being a lot of fun to watch.
No, I 100% agree that games were very, very swingy, but also very intricate. In a way, while they were swingy, they were also like swingy in a very predictable way. Like you could predict where the swings would come from and how they would happen. Like, Trick Shot Ruffian makes for some very swingy games, but like once you know it exists, you can be like, oh, yeah, obviously the Trick Shot Ruffian's gonna, make a 20-point life swing here, or like, force a chump block and gain 20 points.
Yeah, keep up that removal or keep a flying blocker in order to not get killed by the trick shot.
As Direwolf would say on stream, there were some very heads-up plays made by a lot of these players. Would you agree that there were some heads-up plays made during this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't paying the most attention to the actual play. I was a little preoccupied, but it was a lot of fun to watch. I am going through the semifinals and finals, as I mentioned earlier, and there were in the matches that I've watched, there were definitely some heads up plays playing around these cards that were really dominating the meta, like Ruffian and Curtain Call.
I'm mostly just poking at the commentators who they always say heads up a lot of the time. I think Corey Burkhart's the one who's most guilty of this, just saying heads up a lot. I'm doing some good fun, obviously, but they do say heads up a lot, like some heads up deck building there. Wow, what a heads up play! Oh my goodness, heads up! It's just funny to me.
All right, so let's talk about what happened in this top 8. So Batteries took down Nikoaba, Rakano beating Even Xenan. Ilya versus Jaffa. I don't think we saw that one either, but Ilya took down Jaffa. Ilya was really the Rakano slayer of this tournament, defeating Collector and Black Ice, both on the TBC list, and then Jaffa on this reverse engineered Rakano list.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing there is that Damara played a pretty big role, right? I think Damara was a key innovation of Even Xenan in the later days of the metagame, and because that was an innovation that was not on my radar for Even Xenan, although in retrospect, obviously, it's an insanely powerful card.
Yeah, stealing the Svetya from the market in order to play it. And I mean, the Rakano deck is almost all units, so it just totally shuts it down.
And plus, making your deck bigger is obviously not a bad thing either. And there's no way to really kill Svetya in Rakano if you just never block. And we'll discuss the top 4 in a second, but it's suffice to say, Damara played a pretty big role in that matchup.
Yeah, and then Gage 902 beat GT 100. We saw Tokus doing some serious work on Silverblade Intrusion.
I mean that was the matchup that really showcased just the power of both sides of the deck, the interesting lines in Gage, although Gage had some really good top decks in the final game. Like there was like 5 draw steps in a row where it was like just banger after banger. Like it looked like it was like, oh, they're both sitting at 12 power, wow, how even. And then or like Gage is like 20 or something. It's like somehow like GT had like 5 more power than Gage. He's like 12, and like I was like counting. I'm like, wait, does Gage only have 7 actual power in play? Because he like twisted Tokos like 3 times for both of them, and had like 2 other things in play. It was like at like 20 or something. It was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I remember the super twisted Tokuses, and that really mattered because Gage's deck has a lot of expensive cards. It really helped Gage playing them. And in the bottom part of the bracket, we had Gurga PM beating Kolokoma in the Even Xenan Mirror. So our top 4 is Batteries, Ilya K, Gage 902, and Gurga PM. And again, I did a deep dive into these games. It'll be on YouTube, linked in the description. You know the drill. So if you're looking for some really in-depth gameplay analysis, be sure to check that out. So we saw all these matches on stream. Ilya versus Batteries. I think that definitely Ilya like ran pretty hot here. He drew the curtain calls when he needed them. There was also the fact that Batteries was stuck on 2 in the first game, and then Batteries made this really unfortunate misclick, or I'm not sure what happened.
The first he did misclick by discarding, but the thing is he had like 0 chance of winning that game. Like the turn he misclicked, Ilya's K hand was even-handed golem, like curtain call, annihilate. No, it was like 2 even-handed golems, a curtain call, and like 2 annihilates, or like 2 curtain calls. It was like 5 of the best cards in the matchup, and like 2 and he had like a golem in play already. And it was like the game was already like unbeatable for Ilya at that point. So like the misclick was thankfully merciful and didn't really matter that much. But it was the future games like in the final third game where batteries blocked with Embargo Officer that really sealed the deal in that final game, where it unlocked the Damars out of Ilya K to both take Svetya, and then eventually to take Pristine Light to replay Svetya. That was brutal.
Yeah, Ilya definitely stole the game plan. I think another thing was that batteries just couldn't find the flyer for the Trickshot Ruffians. Batteries had all these Trickshot Ruffians, but no flyers to get through, and Ilya was able to just chump block with something every time.
The other big thing is that, batteries like played a Ruffian just to gain some life rather than just saving it and holding it on, trying to wait for the flyers to appear. But again, there was a lot of interesting lines of play, and the games went very long. Great run for both players up to that point anyway. So
on the bottom half of the bracket, we had Gage against Gurga PM. Gurga PM, of course, on the Even Xenan, and Gage was on the Taller Xenan. And I think that this was... like, it didn't look like there was much that Gurga PM could do. Like, Gage's deck list looked really good against the Even Xenan deck list, just going way bigger and going into Taller, going into Karos, and just winning the game. Was that the impression that you got from this matchup?
Yeah, basically, it comes down to, you take sort of a big mid-range deck, and then you give it a bigger mid-range deck, that's doing much of the same things but bigger, and, it doesn't look particularly close. Like, I think Even Xenan has some chances. If they go like turn 3 Ubzat, that would probably seal the deal. Because Ubzat's very good. But if you got like the quad Sand Warrior hand, you could probably do it. But for the most part, I think the matchup's like 80-20, 70-30 maybe.
Yeah, and fortunately for Gage, they got to play the same matchup again in the finals against Ilya K. And I don't think it's a surprise that we saw a Xenan mirror match in the finals. I mean, we forecasted this, right?
Xenan mirror match.
Xenan ECQ.
Not a Xenan mirror match. It was Xenan versus Xenan, but that's not a mirror.
Yeah, okay. I the decks weren't exactly the same, but I'm just saying 2 Xenan decks matched up in the finals, and we kind of called it. The name of the last episode was the Xenan ECQ, and that's exactly what happened here.
I still think of it as Rakano ECQ person.
All right, fair enough. And again, Gage just had such an upper hand from the deck. I think that the Even Xenan deck can beat down early, but that wasn't enough to take down Gage, and they eventually won by going big.
Ilya K's hot streak just ran out, and a deck that was well prepared to deal with the Even Xenan menace, just kind of did what it's supposed to do. You went bigger, right? It just has so much bigger things, and it's hard to deal with, especially because Ilya did switch Defile for some Annihilate, but like Defile doesn't do that much against the big Xenan list, right? You slam like All Head or Ixtal against Even Xenan. And what are they supposed to do, right?
Yep.
like really, it's just blocking and curtain call, but you can play around curtain calls, it turns out.
Yeah. So congratulations to Gage. It's kind of amazing. The one player out of the top 8 that I didn't recognize before the tournament ended up taking it down. So congratulations to Gage, joining Bruised by God, Kolokoma, Lights Out Ace, Twanbon, Virgin Mary, The Boxer, Collector, Adrius, the reigning champion, Notarg, Meal 29, Nico Abba, and myself in Worlds in 2020. We have one more ECQ this season. It's going to be Expedition. We don't know when it's going to be, but you can probably figure that it's going to be sometime in about a month. We've got 2 more seasonal champions, one for Throne and one for Expedition. We've got 4 draft winners, and then we have 4 wildcards, and that will be rounding up Worlds 2020. I'm really looking forward to the tournament.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out about when draft is, because I got to 85 draft points. Ooh. So I got the draft buy. I love drafting. That's always been my first love. And then I discovered that Constructed is also fun too, which is why I've been a big part of Constructed in the past, year and a half or whatever. It turns out that all aspects of the card game are fun, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing information on what draft's gonna be like. Is it gonna be like last year's draft tournament where it was like a sealed portion and then day 2 was a draft portion, or is it gonna be just all draft portion, or I don't know, and then obviously the wild card slots are the mist, so
It came up in my YouTube recommendations, the replay of last year's showdown, and I remember being a part of that, the showdown for the last spot at Worlds. And there are 4 spots up for grabs at Worlds, but I think that would be awesome if there's a showdown of the best performers of this year's ECQ season. But I also would be totally fine with discretionary invites.
I think that if there was like a tournament like that where it's like the 32 best performers or whatever, which I think was last time. Obviously I have a biased interest in that because I think I'd have a shot at that because I basically have a 50% conversion rate this season for top 64s. So I think I'd have a decent chance at getting into a tournament like that. So I'm a little biased there, so I feel like I shouldn't really comment on that regards. But I remember the last tournament was really interesting, especially because Direwolf actually provided us with god accounts for a temporary.
Wait! I remember this because I was a part of it, and I was playing Pledge. There were god accounts, but they didn't have premium sigils. So like all the cards were premium, except like if you pledged something. So the sigils weren't premium, but if you pledged something, it came up as a premium sigil. Versus if you just played a sigil on turn 1, it was unpremium. And I remember being very flustered about that.
I just took Huru controlled that tournament.
That one was eventually won by Tobo on Stone Sky. I remember that. That was a good tournament. I'd love to see another one of those.
The next closest equivalent to a tournament like that is the seasonal champions, because just the seasonal championships just have the best players in them. I do think it's roughly harder to win a seasonal championship than it is to win an ECQ. Or at least to get to top 64, it's a lot harder because, in an ECQ anyone can join, but for the seasonal, you have to get those 25 points. If you want to get those 3 extra wins, you gotta get to 75 points, and that is not a small, especially the 75.
I don't know if I agree. I think it's harder to win ECQ, and I could take the easy way out and to be like, oh yeah, it's easier to win a seasonal championship having won one. Or no, it's more difficult. But just whenever it comes to tournament size and whatnot, as far as like you need to get top X in either one, I think the one with more players is just going to be more difficult.
Interesting. I'm not trying to say like that. Like winning an ECQ is easy. It's obviously not. Otherwise, I would have done it.
Anyway, that's it for the ECQ recap. Congratulations again to Gage 902, and congratulations to everyone with the strong showing. We will get you up to date for the next ECQ when that comes up, but until then, I guess we'll do some things that are not just like news episodes of FECast. We'll have some more like evergreen things that are just not time sensitive. I know that I definitely want to talk about how to improve as a player on FECast. Any topics you want to cover, Stormblessed?
I want to cover more deck building topics. I like deck building. That's the thing that I like doing a lot. So I'd like to cover more deck building topics, like power based.
Yeah, that sounds good. So if you want to hear about those types of things, if you want to improve your gameplay, join the FE Discord, as we always say, but also stay tuned because we'll have more great content for you.
And if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to be discussed in FECast, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, just post in the FECast section of the FE Discord. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this recap episode, Stormblessed, and congratulations to your team again for absolutely breaking the metagame open. And thank you everyone out there for listening. Until next time, we'll see you in the friend zone.
Stay friendly.
The Friends of Eternal Discord is the best place on the internet to get better at Eternal. We have players of all skill and experience levels all happy to help each other out on basically any aspect of their Eternal gameplay. And making all this possible is our generous patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support FECast or Friends of Eternal, consider donating at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we'll see you in the friend zone.